Hey guys, good evening. It is John C. Morley, your serial entrepreneur. Great to be with you on Inspirations for Your Life. Of course, love to be with you guys all the time on the show. Our master topic, incidentally, for the week, in case you're wondering, is building unity through clarity, communication, and compassion. And tonight's granular topic is unity and clarity, where preferred over division and confusion, and it's series 4, show 22, episode number 6, and a big welcome, everyone. Hey guys, if you're new here, well, welcome, and if you're coming back, well, welcome back. It's always great to have old friends back here again. Do share it out with your friends. That's believemeachieve.com, where you can find more of my amazing, inspiring creations. Definitely check that out after the show or anytime around the day that you'd like to do that. Our podcasts are available, short form content, long form content. If you're hungry or thirsty, head on over to the kitchen. I don't want you to be famished. And get something delicious, something hot, something cold, something sweet, something tart, healthy or not, totally up to you. All right, guys, let's kick off this show. All right, well, welcome back, like I said, to another powerful episode of Inspirations for Your Life podcast. I'm your host, John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur, a podcast coach and host, engineer, video producer, and many other things, and someone who believes deeply in the value of clarity, unity, and leadership, rooted in true integrity with authenticity. In today's episode, I'm going to dive into a truth that's often overlooked in our fast-paced world, opinion-saturated world, I should really say. Unity and clarity are not just nice to haves, they're essential. When we prefer unity over division and clarity over confusion, we create space for growth, collaboration, peace, and progress. If you've been feeling stuck, misunderstood, or overwhelmed, this episode will help you refocus, reset, and reignite your inner compass. Let's unpack the 10 most transformative principles for bringing more unity and clarity into your personal and professional life. So let's just dive right in. The first one is the power of choosing unity in personal and professional relationships. And I know this might sound like something that doesn't make sense, but it absolutely does make sense, guys. I want to share that with you. It absolutely does make sense, and that's why it's important to heed this advice and then choose to apply it in your life. Unity is a conscious choice. It's not a passive state. When you decide to prioritize harmony in your relationships, whether with coworkers, friends, or even family members, you create a fertile ground for trust and for growth. Disagreements and differing perspectives are inevitable, but choosing unity means you commit to working through those moments with respect and empathy. It's not about agreeing on everything, but about valuing connection over ego. In workplaces, unified teams outperform the fragmented ones because they function as one living, breathing organism with a shared heartbeat. And I think that's important to realize because some people don't understand that we're in a world where many people don't understand that we are interconnected. We're not in this world alone, guys. We're not in this world alone. So, why clarity is a leadership strength and not a luxury? So, clarity is the compass every team, family, or organization needs. Without it, even the most talented individuals lose their direction at one point. Leaders often underestimate how much their people crave certainty, not in outcomes, but in communication. When you clearly articulate your vision, your goals, and your values, people respond with trust and, of course, confidence. Vagueness leads to hesitation, but clarity creates momentum. Whether you're leading a business, a classroom, or your own life, clarity isn't optional. It's the fuel for decisive action. And I think if more people understood that, I think our world would be a better place. But sometimes people get stuck in these egos. I mean, it just sort of happens. There's not too much I can tell you about it, but it sort of happens, and they get stuck, like I like to say, in all this red tape, which is obviously, no fun, right? No fun there. All right. So now that you understand a little bit about, why we're talking about this topic, I think another thing important is division. Because see, division breeds doubt and confusion stalls progress. And then we just don't know where the heck to go or what to do anymore. And we're like, I don't know what we're supposed to do. Like, I'm just so confused. Division doesn't just cause discomfort. It creates chaos. It fractures relationships, sometimes slowly, sometimes quickly, clouds decision making, and drains the energy that we have left in us. When people don't feel aligned or included, they disengage and confusion starts to creep in. Progress becomes paralyzed by indecision, second guessing, and silos. That's why it's so important to address division head on. Sometimes a simple, honest conversation can rebuild bridges that seemed irreparable. Bridges that seemed like there was no way they could ever be fixed. Progress depends on the alignment, and the alignment requires intention. But you can't just get intention by snapping your fingers. I think that's important to understand. Number four, guys, simple practices to promote understanding over judgment. Many people elicit judgment because of why? Because of the fact that, they have an ego and they've got to let that ego show. Understanding starts with curiosity. Before you jump to conclusions, pick and ask some questions. Try replacing why did they do that with what might they be experiencing now. Active listening, reflective feedback, and empathy based on responses are simple daily tools that break down walls of judgment. When you listen to understand, not to respond, you invite others in a space of safety and of growth. That's the foundation of true connection in both personal and professional settings. The long term value of collective thinking over isolated egos. One mind can go fast, but many minds go far. When ego drives decisions, people get excluded and ideas become narrow. But collective thinking opens doors to innovation, inclusion, and resilience. The smartest leaders know how to step back, listen, and include voices they may not always agree with, and that's important. They understand that a team's greatest strength lies in its real diversity, not just of backgrounds, but of the thought. Let go of the need to be the only answer, and you'll find the best solutions. Number six, how unified goals drive momentum and motivation. When everyone is rowing in the same direction, right, in a boat, that boat moves faster. Unified goals create alignment. If somebody was rowing in the opposite direction, well, that would cause friction. And it might actually prevent you from getting where you want to if the friction was strong enough. So unified goals create alignment, they reduce friction, and they build intrinsic motivation. Individuals stop working in silos and start seeing their task as part of a greater purpose, the whole. Whether in business or life, take time to define shared outcomes. When people see how the efforts contribute to something meaningful, they become more driven, committed, and engaged. Number seven, clarity as a tool for reducing anxiety and overwhelmness. Uncertainty breeds anxiety. When people don't know what's expected of them or where things are headed, they fill in the blanks with worst case scenarios. Clarity, even when it's not all good news, provides a sense of security. It allows people to plan, act, and respond appropriately. If you're including a team, raising a family, or just navigating life, communicating clearly establishes that during uncertain times, it could be one of the greatest gifts you'll ever uncover. You can offer these things to others and, of course, yourself. Number eight, division often comes from fear. Unity requires courage. Maybe that's why some people choose not to unify because they need courage to unify. And that's a commitment for some people, right? It takes a little effort to divide. It takes strength to unite. Let me say that again. It takes little effort to divide. It takes strength to unite. It takes a little effort to divide. It takes strength to unite. Division is often rooted in fear. Fear of change, fear of loss, fear of being wrong. But unity calls for courage, the bravery to face discomfort, ask hard questions, and meet others halfway. True unity isn't pretending everything is fine. It's acknowledging differences and still choosing connection. Leaders who model courage inspire unity, and people who embrace vulnerability build bridges where walls once stood. Number nine, guys, the role of active listening in building unity. We've talked about the importance of, listening well in the past. But the thing is, do you really understand what that means? Active listening is a superpower in the world, and it loves to talk. When you genuinely hear someone, not just their words, but their emotions, you validate their humanity for their core and their purpose, what they stand for. That validation builds trust and makes unity possible. Active listening requires patience, presence, and humility. It's not about crafting a clever reply, it's about holding space for the other person's truth. Whether you're a manager or a friend, when people feel heard, they lean in, and that's where unity begins. And I think if we can understand that, and I want to go over to Merriam Webster for a moment here, if I may. Merriam Webster, and I want to look up the definition of unity. So, according to Merriam Webster, unity is a noun. And I quote, it's the quality or state of not being multiple, it's oneness, a definite amount taken as one or for which one is made to stand in calculation, a condition of harmony, continuity without deviation or change, as in purpose or action, the quality or state of being made one, a combination or ordering of parts in a literary or artistic production that constitutes a whole or promotes an undivided total effect. The resulting singleness of effect or symmetry and consistency of style and character. A totality of related parts, entity that is complex or systematic as a whole. If we think of like maybe a washing machine, the totality of all the parts together as a whole is a unit. It's unified, right? Um, any of the three principles of dramatic structure. Comes from the French classics, from Aristotle's poetic semblance, and requiring a play to have a single action represented as an occurrence in one place and within one day. So when we think about unity in our lives, I think it scares people because unity means that you've got to be committed. All right. You've got to be committed. And if you're not, then I feel it could be a problem. All right. I think sometimes we get stuck, right? And the reason we get stuck is because of a perception that we put into our mind. A perception we put into our mind. And I think that's a hard thing for a lot of people to understand, is that they don't quite understand like what it is or what it should be. But it's the truth, guys. It absolutely is the truth. And if we just embrace like where we are, where we're going, I think that can make the journey a lot easier for us, right? But in the beginning, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, right? And I've said you got to practice getting comfortable, right? Being uncomfortable. That was something I said from the get-go, and I'll say it over and over again. We have to practice getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And our last point for this evening is replacing reactive responses with intentional communication. Oh, wow, John, that's a real mouthful. I know, but it's priceless. So we live in a culture of this knee-jerk reaction. You did this, I'll do this, right? But growth lives in truth, integrity, intentionality. When you replace these quick retorts with thoughtful dialogue, you elevate every conversation. You build intentional communication, meaning choosing your words based on values in the core, not emotions. It requires you being present, being mindful, having a certain level of maturity, and of course, self-awareness. Whether in a heated argument or perhaps a crucial, I'm going to say, meeting, taking a breath before you speak can be the difference between damage and breakthrough. Speak to connect, not to control, and you'll create a space for unity. And I think maybe when you start to know that this is the way it works and that you've gotten some results from it, well, then it's like you've learned something. And I think that's something that's really, really powerful. All right, now is the time, guys. You know what I like to do. I want to give you some personal stories from my life. So I'm going to give you basically a personal story for basically each point today. And it's my hope that it will solidify and it will also move you to start changing the way you do things. We've said before that if you do the same thing over and over again and you expect different results, well, that's insanity. Einstein said that, right? So if we realize that we're not going to get a difference by doing the same thing over and over again, right? Then we need to change. But sometimes we need a mentor to say, "Hey, wait a minute, you're trying to go somewhere on an empty tank of gas. Like, you can't do that." They're not going to call you insane, but I'm being really blunt and to the point and saying, you got to wake up, guys. You got to realize that you're the captain of your ship. And if you don't like where it's going, well, then you better get behind the helm and change the direction of the wheel. The power of choosing unity in personal and professional relationships. A few years ago, I was leading a collaborative tech project involving multiple departments, and each with very strong opinions with this client. Tensions definitely flared up on their sides, and meetings started to feel more like battlegrounds than brainstorming sessions. One day, instead of pushing my agenda, I asked each team to share their concerns openly. It changed everything. That shift from "I'm right" to "let's get it right together" allowed us to see the value in each other's contributions. Unity wasn't immediate, but choosing it daily created and actually built a new culture of mutual respect. That project, one of the most successful and fulfilling of my career, has taught me that when we manage a project, we have to work on building rapport with everyone first before we try to even get an agenda going. Why clarity is a leadership strength and it's not a luxury anymore. I remember mentoring a young entrepreneur who kept switching directions in his startup every week, a new vision. Each team was confused. One day he was making chocolate chip cookies. The next day he was deciding to be a delivery service. Another time he wanted to take care of the sick. Another time he decided he wanted to go into carpentry. His team was so confused. The morale, like as I said, dropped. And investors began pulling back. During a coaching session I had with him, I asked him, "What's the one message you want your team to wake up thinking about?" That question led him to rework his mission and communication. Within a month, clarity thankfully returned. And with it, so did momentum. See, that taught me that leadership isn't just about having a vision. It's about making sure everyone else sees it too. So you might say, "Gee, John, why do I have to do that?" Because when you do that, people get charged about your vision. How division breeds doubt and confusion stalls progress. At one point, I was helping a nonprofit board where members were silently divided about a major initiative. The lack of open dialogue led to whispers, resentment, and delays. I called a special meeting not to resolve the issue, but just to talk out what was happening, see what was on people's minds. What followed was, well, a little uncomfortable, but it was necessary. Once we acknowledged the division, clarity returned. That experience reminded me silence is not always golden. Sometimes it's toxic. Division thrives in the shadows. Progress thrives in the light. Let me say that again. Division thrives in the shadows and progress thrives in the light. And that's important. Number 4, simple practices to promote understanding over judgment. I once judged a business partner from another company being difficult, only to later learn he was going through a divorce and caring for a sick parent. That changed everything. I started every conversation after that by asking, "How are you, really?" It shifted our entire dynamic. That small shift, choosing to understand before I shouldn't judge, but before I even thought of judging, turned conflict into, well, pure collaboration. People don't always wear their struggles on their sleeves. Curiosity and compassion create bridges where assumptions build walls. Number 5, the long-term value of collective thinking over isolated egos. When I launched one of my earlier companies, I thought I had to be the smartest voice in every room. But I learned the hard way that one mind can't do it all. After a failed project launch, I invited my entire team from marketing to interns to weigh in on the next version. The insights from those I'd overlooked. Game changing. It wasn't my vision alone that succeeded, it was our collective intelligence put together. Ego isolated, inclusion innovated. Number six, how unified goals drive momentum and motivation. And me telling you this probably doesn't mean anything, but when this takes place in your life, it's like, oh my gosh, like, how did that ever happen? So, in one of my mastermind groups, we were all chasing different outcomes. Our calls felt scattered and aimless, so we paused and spent one session creating a shared goal to help each other triple our impact by the end of the quarter. Everything changed. Accountability skyrocketed, and so did results. Unified goals turned isolated efforts into synchronized power. It's like a rowing in a boat. When everyone's in sync, as I said before, you glide. When one person's rowing the other direction, well, it's harder for you to get the boat to go the opposite direction. But then if there are too many people that are rowing in the wrong direction, it can nearly be impossible to overcome that force. So it's important to have communication and make sure everyone is pulling the same way. Same thing would happen in a tug of war, right? If I suddenly was going this way and you're supposed to pull this way, well, that could be a big problem, right? Really big problem for the team that wants to win, that is. Number seven, clarity as a tool for reducing anxiety and overwhelmingness. And this is something, again, you just can't make up, guys. This is something that you've really got to live in that moment to believe what I'm saying, because all this stuff is great. But until you've had a chance to live it out, that's when life actually changes. That's when it changes. Clarity is a tool for reducing anxiety and being overwhelmed. I once worked with a high performing assistant who suddenly started missing deadlines. Instead of reacting negatively, I asked her what was going on. She admitted she was unclear on priorities and felt overwhelmed. We sat down, clarified expectations, and created a simple roadmap. Her stress dropped and her performance soared. Clarity isn't about micromanaging people, it's about offering structure in the chaos. People can do amazing things when they know what's expected of them. Whether this is a class, whether this is a volunteer program, whether this is a relationship, I think it's important to know what the non negotiables are, what the expectations are. Number eight, division often comes from fear and unity requires courage. I said that before, right? I once had, let's say, a little falling out with a close friend over a misunderstanding. It would have been easier to just let the relationship fade, but something inside me said, be brave, reach out. I did. We met for coffee, and within minutes, the walls started to fall. What I feared would be confrontation turned into a reconnection. And division whispered, protect yourself. Courage says, take a step forward. That coffee, one of the most healing cups I've ever had, changed my life. And I think you can understand that too. Most people want to figure things out. They want to be able to enjoy life. They want to know what's going on. The role of active listening in building unity. During a leadership retreat that I was running, we did an exercise where one person spoke for 3 minutes, while the other just listened. No interruptions were allowed. When it was my turn to listen, as I was also someone helping in the facilitation, I heard a colleague share how undervalued he felt. I had no idea. Just listening truly helped me and transformed a relationship that I didn't even expect to. I was the one facilitating the retreat, and I even got benefit out of it. After that, I practiced being more present with everyone. It's amazing what people reveal when they truly are heard. Listening isn't just a skill, guys. It's a power. It's a superpower. It's a gift. I think the reason why a lot of people don't listen is because they're afraid. And what you should be afraid of is not listening. Because when somebody doesn't communicate, it's like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do now? If you just communicate, you can figure out what's going on in your life and other people's lives. All right? Number 10, our last point for this evening, replacing reactive responses with intentional communication. Wow, as I said, this is a jawbreaker. Um, I think because it's so emotional. Years ago, a team member sent a critical email that made, let's say, my blood start to boil, which never happens, by the way. I almost replied immediately, but I stopped myself. I waited until the next day. I reread it and I realized the person had a valid point. I just didn't like the tone or the delivery. We met, had an honest and calm conversation, and ended up improving our workflow. That pause saved the relationship and boosted productivity. Intentional communication isn't about avoiding hard truths, it's about honoring how we deliver them. I think sometimes people get so zealous in the way they want to give feedback, they don't know how to soften the feedback. So, as a leader and as a coach to you, I want to tell you that you should soften when you have constructive feedback. It shouldn't feel like, oh my gosh, you're in this hot chair. Think about it if the cards or the tables were reversed. How would you want somebody to approach you? And so, incorporating these practices, I hope, consistently, will create an amazing culture where clarity for you will lead to confidence and unity will become the foundation of every interaction. It has for me and it has for many other people I've worked with. So whether you are leading a team, you're a household member, or your own life, remember, choosing unity and clarity is the first step toward life of purpose, peace, and productivity. But as we think about all this, we can get stuck in the weeds because maybe we're focused on something else. And that something else, you know what it does? It confuses us. And the reason it confuses us is because we suddenly don't know where we stand. That makes sense? I think when we can do these kinds of things, there's a lot that happens. Okay. And I know that a lot of you are saying to me, hey, John, like, this is interesting, but it's not exactly what I wanted. Okay, I'm all right with that. Um, but I think it's the fact that we need to listen to what's going on in the world. And I know that can be a very hard thing for some people, but let's make it our practice to actively listening to everything that goes on and not judge. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur. Do check out BelieveMeAchieve.com for more of my amazing, inspiring creations. I'll catch you real soon, everyone. Take care and have a wonderful rest of your day.